Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Astatata Satasi Srimad Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Astatata Satasi Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinata Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So this is kind of a continuation. We have two things today, two tasks. One of those tasks is to talk a little bit about these three verses here in the Caitanya Caritamrita, but the other task is assigned to talk about the pastime of Jagannath Mishra, the celebration of the festival. So it's kind of a really good segue after yesterday's festival of Lord Caitanya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Readings from Caitanya Caritamrita, Madhya Lila, Canto, I guess you say Canto 1, 65 through 67. Etina Madhyayabe Takeye Janna Tanre Ase Apanamile Parbura Niyama. If one of these three boys were not present, he would meet the others. That was his regular practice. There's no purport to that. Text 166. Daive asi parvuyabe urdvete kahila. Daive asi parvu. Oh, you don't have it written up there. Sorry, I'll just read them then. It's just the Bengali. Daive asi parvuyabe urdvete chahila. Chale gonja tala patre se shloka paila. When Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu went to the residence of Sri Rupa Goswami, he accidentally saw the palm leaf on the roof, and thus he read the verse composed by him. And text 67, Shloka Padi Ache Prabhu Avista Haya, Rupa Goswami Ase Pade Dandavatahana. After reading the verse, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu went into an ecstatic mood. While he was in that state, Srila Rupa Goswami came and immediately fell down on the floor like a rod. And Srila Prabhupada has a tiny little purport that explains this. The word danda means rod or pole. A rod or pole falls straight. Similarly, when one offers obeisances to his superior with all 8 angas or parts of the body, he performs what is called dandavat. Sometimes we only speak of dandavats, but actually do not fall down. In any case, dandavat means falling down like a rod before one's superior. Sometimes you'll see people making dandavats to Srila Prabhupada or to the deities. So this chapter is entitled, the whole chapter of this Caitanya Caritamrita verses is entitled The Later Pastimes of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And we've been given only 3 little verses outside of all of that. I will give a little context leading up to it, otherwise the verses may not make a lot of sense. So just as an orientation for those of you who might be listening, I don't know if people are listening in the kitchen cutting vegetables or something, but they may not understand what is the Adya Lila, the Madhya Lila, and the Antya Lila. But this Caitanya Caritamrita that we're reading from today has been divided into 3 aspects of Lord Caitanya's life. And the Adi Lila describes the activities of the Lord in his first 24 years. So when he lived at home with his mother, and then he had a first wife who died of a snake bite, Lakshmi Priya, and then he had another very brief marriage before he took sannyas, Vishnu Priya. So that was his first 24 years, and at 24 years, we move into the middle pastimes called the Madhya Lila. Madhya just means middle. And the Antya Lila is naming or referring to the Lord's final pastimes, and it describes the activities of the Lord in his last years of life. He died or left his body at the age of 48, so he had an incredibly rich life for someone who was only on the planet for 48 years. It's amazing. So these divisions are classified in these texts. So for 6 years of the last 24 years of the Lord's earthly life, he traveled all over India. And for 18 continuous years, the Lord remained in Jagannath Puri in Orissa and taught by his personal example how to live a life of devotion to God by chanting the holy name and dancing in ecstasy. So for those of you who've never been to India, don't know what Jagannath Puri temple is, it's considered to be the oldest, if not one of the oldest, Hindu temples in India, and was supposedly built even before Kali Yuga in the Dwapara Yuga. There's a wonderful story of the advent of Nil Madhav, which we won't talk about here, but it is a really old temple. And in the Aquarian Gospel, which Srila Prabhupada somehow or other validated, at least he either heard about it or read about it, there's a record of Jesus of Nazareth having gone during those years when he was 13. They were like the lost years of Jesus, when he kind of goes dark in the Bible and there's this gap, and then he reemerges in the biblical text at the age of 30. But there's apparently, I've never been in the Jagannath Puri temple because Westerners are not allowed to go inside, but there's supposed to be a record of Jesus of Nazareth having spent time there. And as the story goes, he, in his search after he left the temple when he was 13, he traveled on the Silk Road to India and ended up spending 6 years with the Hindus. And he was not very pleased with what he saw because they were very much at that time focused on the caste system. So there was a lot of discrimination from the people from different classes, economic classes and statuses. And in some ways, the temple or the religious institution was kind of abusive. So he didn't appreciate that so much, and then went and spent 6 years with a Buddhist, and he kind of preferred that model. So there's some notion amongst historians that Christianity is kind of a blend of aspects of Buddhism and also Hinduism that he brought with him when he started his preaching mission. So anyway, it's also during this time that Lord Caitanya sent Nityananda Prabhu out from Jagannath Puri to Bengal, which is where our national headquarters is in Mayapur Dham. It's also known as Goda Dash. The word Goda, it means the land. It's referring to the land known as West Bengal today, Goda Dash. And so Lord Nityananda was instructed by Lord Caitanya to preach all over the place, just to go out and preach. And Nityananda, he started to go door to door and distribute the knowledge of loving devotional service to the Lord everywhere he went. In fact, Nityananda wanted to follow Lord Chaitanya's example and take sannyas, but Lord Caitanya said, no, if you take sannyas, then you're limited in how close you get to people. There's kind of a restriction, a boundary, where sannyasis, they can't mingle really with normal people. And so Lord Caitanya wanted Nityananda to become very involved in the householder community and get close to people so that he could deliver them a devotional service. So Lord Caitanya used to address Nityananda Prabhu as his elder brother. They were not considered birth family, but he referred to Nityananda as his elder brother, whereas Nityananda, he would refer to Lord Caitanya as his Lord. So they had a little difference of relationship. And although Nityananda Prabhu is also Balaram himself, who is on our far right altar, same Nityananda who is on our left altar in different incarnations. He's always considered himself the eternal servant of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in his preaching, Nityananda Prabhu, he requested everyone, it was a very simple message, he requested everyone he met just to serve Lord Chaitanya, chant his glories, and utter his name. And anyone who rendered devotional service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered his life and soul. So Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, they were very much, reciprocal or appreciative or obliged to anyone who served Lord Chaitanya's mission and message. So Nityananda Prabhu introduced this culture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for everyone, without discrimination, even though people might be fallen, maybe they were atheists, maybe they were blasphemers. He gave this process freely to everyone. So Lord Chaitanya then sent two brothers, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, to Vraja, or Vrindavan, which is Krishna's birthplace. And after going there, they also preached devotional service and discovered many places of pilgrimage. They were kind of covered before they were sent there to resurrect some of these places of pastimes of Lord Krishna when he was on the planet. And both Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they brought various scriptures to Vrindavan and summarized the essence of devotional service from all these many texts that they were bringing and combing through and lifting out the most important things to give to the common people so they could understand. Some of these literatures are very esoteric and very, academic wouldn't be the right word, more elaborate. And if you're trying to distribute this message to the common people who might not even be literate, they're not going to understand the message if it's too complex. So they use their literary abilities to write books to help people understand the process of devotional life. In addition to the Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, who were brothers, they also had a nephew named Jiva Goswami, who also, at a very young age, became a very prolific writer on the Bhakti Yoga process. And almost all of the family members of Jiva, Sanatana Goswami, and Rupa Goswami all live in Vrindavan, and they pretty much all published books on devotional service. So that was a whole family, not a business, but an activity or pastime, is that you had all of your family members thinking about how are we going to communicate or help people understand bhakti through writing. It's quite an amazing family. So the first year after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the renounced order of life, all his devotees went to see him in Jagannath Puri and to attend the Rath Yatra festival. So this was the first time they all came together and they met. And this Rath Yatra festival is continued all over the world. Srila Prabhupada introduced that in all the major countries and the major cities of the world, and now it's trickled down into even smaller villages and cities where they might have a smaller Rath Yatra card. And every year we celebrate that here. We bring Jagannath from the bottom of the hill all the way up, and then we have a festival here. They do it in Sydney and Melbourne, and I suspect also Brisbane, and certainly Los Angeles and New York, and all the major towns in the world. It's a wonderful festival where Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, who we do not have on our altar here, are taken in a beautiful cart and on a parade. And if you've ever been at a Rath Yatra in any of the major towns, people sit up. They're like, what is this coming down the street? There's kirtan, and people are curious. It attracts them. And they follow the parade to the festival site, and then there's lots of festivities like dramas and singing and prasadam. So we do this here on our farm. It's a wonderful festival. And so after they came, the devotees came from Bengal to be with Lord Chaitanya. They stayed for 4 months, if you can imagine, having the luxury to just come and be with the Lord for 4 months and just absorb yourself in performing kirtan and dancing and sharing prasadam. And this is 500 years ago, but this mood and these festivals like we had yesterday is modeled after the example of the Lord and this devotional association, just by feasting and kirtan and dancing. It's a festival when we do that, and we do a lot of those kind of festivals here at New Govardhana. So Srila Prabhupada also instructed his devotees to go to Mayapur and Vrindavan and participate in festivals every year. He instructed us to do that every year. I'm unfortunate not to do that every year, but it's it's kind of the ISKCON rendition of the pastime of Lord Caitanya in Jagannath Puri, because we have our headquarters there at Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. So what I've noticed is there's generally a load of devotees who go around October, November to Vrindavan particularly, and they go for parikram and visiting holy places and associating with devotees. And then you have the Mayapur festival in February, March. A lot of people come from all over the world to just take darshan and to enjoy the spiritual association. So for like 20 consecutive years, the devotees would go to Jagannath Puri to be with the Lord for 4 months. So they were not going in airplanes, and were not going in cars. They were walking from Mayapur, Bengal. It took them a month to walk all the way. They must have had some dirt path. And there's lots of stories of their journey. If you read the Caitanya Caritamrita, some of the things that happened on the way. You have this wonderful story of Shivananda Shena's dog, who became enlightened and went back to Godhead, and the attachment that Shivananda Shena had for his beloved dog, who in the end got to get the mercy of Lord Caitanya. So they did this for 20 years. It was just as predictable as it could be, and they spent time just being together. And devotees became so attached to having connection with Lord Caitanya as they couldn't bear those 8 months when they were in separation. They could hardly bear the separation without him. The last 12 years of the Lord's life, he simply devoted his time to relishing the pastimes of Krishna in the mood of separation. There's a word for that called vipralamba. You have the connecting and the meeting and the separation of the devotee and the Lord. We also have that in the relationships with devotees, our fellow Vaishnavas. There's ecstasy when they come, and there's in some ways an ecstasy in missing them. So Lord Caitanya, in his last 12 years, he was immersed in this feeling of separation, remembering and staying absorbed just in his mood of separation, which likened itself to a kind of grief, a kind of yearning to be reunited with his beloved Krishna. So sometimes he would become mad in this ecstasy in the daytime or the nighttime. There's stories of him, scratching at his chest, aware that the Lord is residing in his heart, but how do you access the Lord who's in your heart? So he would scratch his chest in separation. Sometimes he would cry, sometimes he would dance, sometimes he would chant, sometimes he would, lament, just tears coming from his eyes in separation. So sometimes Lord Caitanya would visit Lord Jagannath, and then his feelings exactly corresponded to those of the gopis, the cowherd girlfriends of Krishna, when they saw Krishna at Kurukshetra after being separated for a long time. And when Caitanya used to dance before the Rath Yatra cart during the festival, he always sang this following verse: I have forgotten that Lord of my life, for whom I was burning in the fire of lusty desires. And Caitanya used to sing this song, Saita Padananata, especially during the latter part of the day. And he would think, let me take Krishna and go back to Vrindavan. And this was kind of the mood, his ecstatic mood filling his heart. And in this ecstasy, Caitanya recited a verse while dancing before Lord Jagannath. Almost no one understood the meaning of this verse, and this is what it was. That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra, the same fragrance of malati flowers, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationships, I am also the same lover, yet still my mind is not here. I am eager to return to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So this verse appears to be the hankering between some ordinary boy and girl, but it's actually a deeply meaningful, has a deeper meaning, and it was known only to Swarup Damodar, who was Lord Chaitanya's personal servant and secretary. He went with him everywhere, considered to be an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya, and he always stayed with him. He went with him everywhere. And he had this mystic awareness of the Lord's inner purposes, and most people didn't understand some of the things that Lord Chaitanya would say in his ecstatic mood, but Swarup Damodar, he could understand his heart. So although the meaning of this verse was known only to Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, after hearing it from Caitanya Mahaprabhu, immediately composed another verse that described the meaning of the original verse. So after composing this verse, Rupa Goswami wrote it on a palm leaf, and in the old days, back at that time, even now if you go to Jagannath Puri and go to the library of the Vaishnava archives, you'll see that they are not writing on paper, they're writing on, and when I was in Jagannath Puri, I got to see how do they make this papyrus. They take bark of a banana tree as it's green, and they have to dry it. And then they scratch with a pin the verses, and then they make like a ring biter. They take some kind of string or even what do you call that? Vines, for like grass, some kind of grass, and they make it, and then it's sort of the pages go this way. You're flipping it up and over, and so each page, each palm leaf was kind of hooked together in a book form. So Rupa Goswami, he wrote on a palm leaf instead of a piece of paper this verse that was kind of a esoteric verse that was supposed to illuminate that verse that Lord Chaitanya always found ecstatic. And he puts this leaf on the roof of a thatched house. He was living at a little hut. And the reason that he and Haridas Thakur, they were born as Muslims. At least during the Muslim rule, there was this thing where even if you were born a caste Brahmana or even a Hindu, they would somehow sprinkle water on you and now turn you into a Muslim. So in the Jagannath Puri temple, you were not allowed to go into that place unless you were a Hindu. And so Rupa Goswami, out of respect for this rule, he had a hut, and Haridas Thakur had a little hut, and it's not like Goswami had a little hut. And so he was sitting in this hut, and he left this palm leaf in the thatch of the roof, and he went to go and bathe in the sea. And if you've ever been to Jagannath Puri, people go and bathe. It's a fishing town, but in the old days, people would just take bath in the river Yamuna and the Ganges, and this is where they would go for their morning bath, and they had a noon bath, probably an evening bath. Particularly in the hot weather, you need to take a lot of baths to stay clean and cool. So he went to take bath, but Lord Chaitanya, he went out to meet Rupa Goswami, who he would often go and visit with every day on his way home from taking darshan, the lunch darshan at Jagannath Puri. So it explains that there were three personalities who closely associated with Lord Chaitanya, and as I mentioned, Haridas Thakur, who's the Namacharya. He's the model for chanting the holy name 24/7, day and night. He never stopped chanting. and Rupa Goswami, who the Lord explained the whole process of devotional service to in books that guide our bhakti process today. We're still drawing our information from the Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and he has so many other books as well. Sanatana Goswami, his elder brother, also authored many books that guide and instruct our bhakti yoga process. So every day, as I mentioned, the Lord would go and take darshan at the lunch offering, see the artik at lunch, and after taking darshan, he'd go visit one of those three, either Rupa Goswami, Sanatana, or Haridas. And now, all of that's leading up to these three verses that were assigned to us today, and we'll repeat them again. Text 65 says, if one of these persons, one of those three, were not present, the Lord would meet with whoever was present. So if he went to Rupa Goswami's hut and he was not there, he'd go to Sanatana or Haridas's hut, and whoever wasn't there, he'd go to some other person's house for association. And part of the reason that Lord Chaitanya wanted to associate with them is they were just so learned and so evolved as spiritually realized people. And text number 66 says, when Lord Chaitanya went to the residence of Rupa Goswami on that particular day, he accidentally saw a palm leaf on the roof of his hut and read a verse he had composed and left there when he went to take his bath in the sea. Verse 67 says, after reading the verse, Lord Chaitanya went into an ecstatic mood, and while he was in that state, Rupa Goswami came back from the sea and immediately fell on the ground like a rod. He was honoring the Lord, and he fell flat, offered his dandavats. So by falling down, then he comes, Lord Chaitanya lifts him up, and he puts him on his lap, and kind of jokingly slaps him. These are some of the verses that come after this verse, that Lord Chaitanya lifts him up and slaps him, but he jokingly says, how is it that you can understand the purport? How do you understand what I'm, my mood? And no one understands the purport of my verse. How could you understand my intention? And then after that, he gave Rupa Goswami the benediction that he would be able to appropriately or expertly spread the mission and message of Lord Chaitanya. So then Prabhupada mentions in that purport that he received a similar blessing from his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami, when he presented him with some essay that he had written and presented to Bhaktisiddhanta on his appearance day. And he was so pleased that he used to call some of his confidential devotees together and show it to them and read it to them, and asking Prabhupada how he could understand this spiritual master's intention. So, as Swarup Damodar replied to Lord Chaitanya, if Rupa Goswami can understand your mind and intentions, he must have your Lord's special benediction. And then the Lord said, I was so pleased with Rupa Goswami that I embraced him and bestowed upon him all necessary potencies for preaching the bhakti cult. I accept Rupa Goswami as quite fit to understand the confidential mellows of devotional service. So this pastime of Lord Chaitanya discovering the verse written on a palm leaf by Rupa Goswami is very instructive to us in the sense that anyone who can understand the mind and the mood of the Lord or his representative is actually empowered or given the necessary potency to preach the bhakti culture in a way that inspires even the most ignorant and confused people to take up this process of chanting the holy name of the Lord. And we can see from these verses that those who are actually sincere about assisting the Lord in his mission to reawaken in the hearts of all the suffering people of the world their forgotten love for Krishna, having only one thought, how can we do it? How can we do it? That is their compassion. How can we engage people and get them involved in the chanting and dancing of the holy name. So that's the whole purpose of the Hare Krishna movement, to take the association of Krishna and his elevated devotees who are empowered, really, to spread the holy name in this mission. So we can practically see how these lovely pastimes of the Lord are still going on today, how the Lord continues to manifest and incarnate himself in this congregational chanting of the devotees who came together yesterday. We had so much chanting and so much dancing and hearing about the pastimes. And so in this way, the whole lineage keeps going, and it keeps delivering people and reawakening people's love for God. So now I have to stop and segue, because one of the tasks is to talk about this festival of Jagannath Mishra. And if you were here yesterday for the morning program, I think Garuda told quite a bit about some of these things, about his birth, but I will repeat them because that's my duty. And but anyway, Lord Caitanya, he was born in the evening of the full moon in the month of Falguna, and there was a moon eclipse. In fact, last night, if you looked at the moon in the evening, you saw there was an eclipse happening around, what was it, 7 o'clock-ish? Did you notice that? Yeah, you're practically speaking not supposed to look and probably not supposed to be outside, but anyway, we were all eating our feast. So I'm going to just simply summarize, the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Adi Leela, chapter 3, where it describes this festival. And first thing to know, if you're not familiar with Lord Chaitanya and his pastimes, is that Jagannath Mishra was Lord Chaitanya's father, birth father. And Lord Chaitanya's birth name was Vishwambara. And his mother's name was Sachi Devi, or Sachi Mata, Mother Sachi as we call her. So it's described that even before taking his birth, the Lord was preaching the chanting of his holy name. And during the eclipse, there were streams of people. They went for their bath in the Ganges, which is what you're supposed to do on an eclipse. And so they were chanting the Lord's name as they walked along. They were chanting while they were taking bath. They, even though they'd never spoken the Lord's name before, they were doing it out of a ritual that is going on side by side with the bathing in the Ganges. So everybody was chanting, thinking that they were honoring this eclipse festival. So at this time of his actual birth, the sound of the holy name was heard in all directions. And this made the Lord smile to himself as he made his appearance. So just imagine he's taking birth, and as he enters into this hemisphere, he hears the holy name everywhere, even during the birthing process, which is quite amazing. And after the Lord was born, Jagannath Mishra, his father, and Mother Sachi, they began to gaze at the Lord's beautiful face, and they were just looking at him. He was so incredibly effulgent and beautiful that they were filled with unlimited joy. And as any, birth is a celebration, all the women and friends and neighbors, they started to come, and they stood around, not really knowing quite what to do, but they started ululating in jubilation. Does anybody know what ululating is? In Mayapur, anybody? These ladies you'll hear in the back of the kirtan, and it sounds like that. I'm not very good at it. But that's kind of a symptom of celebration and joy, and it's quite amusing and interesting to be in a Bengali kirtan, and the women are making this noise. And it's a symptom. It's not just in India they do that. I noticed in Africa that women do that too, in other parts of the world, but it's an expression of joy. It's kind of an organized way to express yourself. So all these ladies came around and they started ululating and expressing their joy, and relatives came to see the newborn, and so gradually his house starts filling up. Lord Chaitanya's parents' house is filling up, and it becomes a party, just like a baby shower, and a birthing party. And Sachi Mata, her father happened to be Nilambara Chakravarti. He noticed, he was an astrologer, so he was looking at his chart, and he was noticing some esoteric and wonderful signs in every house of the Lord's astrological chart. I'm not an astrologer, so I don't know what that means. But he was astonished by the baby's beauty, seeing all the symbols on his body. He had markings on the bottoms of his feet that were symptomatic of his divinity. But he had seen Nilambara Chakravarti. He had seen or heard that there was a prophecy in Bengal that someday a king would be born in Bengal as a Brahmin son. So he thought maybe this is who Lord Chaitanya was, as somebody who was a Brahmin king taking birth. So thinking in this way, as an expert astrologer, he began explaining the meaning of the different astrological signs in the Lord's chart. But the further he went deeper into the Lord's chart, the more difficult he found understanding his positions. Like, I'm not quite sure I'm really getting who this person is. And because in the Lord's chart, it showed that he would be a learned scholar and have all divine qualities in his personality, and didn't quite fit the description of this king that was supposed to perhaps be him. There was also in the assembly a kind of a saintly person who disguised himself as a Brahmana, and he also made predictions about the Lord's future. And he said things like, "This child is the Supreme Lord Narayan himself. He will establish the essence of all religion and will initiate a wonderful preaching movement and deliver the whole world. He will fulfill what everyone desires, and upon seeing him, people will feel great sense of compassion for all living entities and become callous towards material pains and joys. This will be a wonderful benediction for the whole world." And he said, even hardcore atheists will worship this child's lotus feet, and he will be glorified throughout the entire creation, and people from all orders of life will come to worship him, and that he is the personification of the pure eternal religion, the benefactor of brahmanas, cows, and devotees, and the affectionate, devoted son of his parents. The saint went on, "This child has come to accomplish great works, just as the Supreme Lord Narayan incarnated to reestablish religious principles. How fortunate you are, Sri Jagannath Mishra, a leader among men. I offer my obeisances to you, the illustrious father of the child. I feel greatly fortunate that I could calculate this astrological chart. His name accordingly will be Sri Vishwambara, and he will be known to all as Navadvip Chandra, the moon of Navadvip, which is the little town where he was born in. He is spiritual bliss personified." Let's see, what else is there? I know the time is going short. So the Lord's father, Jagannath Mishra, was captivated with ecstasy over these descriptions of his son and immediately wanted to offer gifts to the Brahmana. He felt so obliged, and often in a marriage or a birth ceremony, people come and give blessings, and the people that are being blessed or celebrating, they're supposed to be giving some kind of gifts back in return. And although Jagannath Mishra was a very poor man with few possessions, he felt so joyful that he fell down at the feet of the Brahmin and cried. And the saintly Brahmin also caught Sri Mishra's feet, and everyone shouted, who were witnessing this, just shouted, "Hari, Hari," in great joy. And the relatives and the friends, they all praised the Lord in this baby form, and they blessed him as they heard the supernatural predictions about his future. Then soon musicians started coming and playing clay drums and flutes and reed instrument called a shenai, and they filled the air with wonderful music. And ladies from higher planets, demigod ladies, they came and they mingled freely, yet they pretended to be normal people, and they wanted to be part of this wonderful gathering. The mother of the demigods, Aditi, smiled and placed her right hand holding auspicious grass and paddy on the child's head to bless him, saying, long life for you. Please remain eternally in this material world and manifest your pastimes." And Sachi Devi and the others noticed the extraordinary beauty of these ladies, but they hesitated to inquire about their identity. Of course they were demigods disguised as normal human beings, and they respectfully took the dust from Sachi Mata's feet. So this pastime is just a big celebration of Lord Chaitanya's life, and it says at the end of it, whoever hears the narrations of Lord Chaitanya's birth is freed from all miseries in life and in death. Anyone who hears Lord Chaitanya's pastimes immediately gets love of God and becomes his eternal servitor. He comes with the Lord each time he advances in this material world. I'm going to stop here, just aware that we have 10 minutes. If anybody has any reflections or something to add, a question, I may be able to answer that. But what came up for you as you heard all this stuff? Did you have any takeaways? Anybody? Some insights that you have yourself? Something I didn't mention? Something that struck you, inspired you, disappointed you? Just to hear about Lord Caitanya, God, yeah. It's really quite amazing. We have to, I mean, we hear it every year, but it just never gets old, right? Just how much blessing the planet has just because of the Sankirtan movement that Lord Chaitanya started. And it's still going on. That means Lord Chaitanya is eternally present in the sound of his holy name. It's kind of amazing. We take it pretty for granted. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any thoughts? Nope. Nothing. All right. We'll stop here then. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I bet the speaker benefits because you have to immerse your head in it, right? It's a wonderful opportunity.